Hey guys, first of all, just want to apologise to you guys for giving you two sort of depressing videos one after another. Unfortunately, as we always say, we just report to you guys what we see and what we hear in Japan. And it just happens to be that the two biggest topics last couple of days have been fairly negative. So this one is about the bullying of COVID patients in Japan, people who catch COVID who are then bullied by the people around them, which is just amazing, isn't it? So just first of all, those of you who haven't seen, we've made videos about bullying in Japan before, and bullying is fairly widespread in Japan, in schools, quite common. Every year a certain number of school students kill themselves as a result of being bullied. The workplace, still bullying is a really big thing in the workplace, and sort of in society in general, anybody who behaves differently to anybody else, or anybody who behaves differently to everybody else, anybody who doesn't conform to the standard behavior patterns and so on in Japan, is often subject to bullying. And it's sort of almost, it's not encouraged, but it's allowed. It's allowed, so usually teachers and school principals and employers and such people ignore bullying because the way they see it is it helps sort of enforce the status quo. Anybody who's not conforming and doing what everybody else is doing, there's a chance they'll be bullied into behaving the way they should be. It happens at school all the time, and the senpai-kohai relationship thing is just a classic platform for that, you know, and there's a blurred line between the senpai-kohai thing and what bullying is all about. And so the bottom line is, in Japan, bullying and harassing people to do what they should do as far as society is concerned, or don't do what they're not supposed to be doing or whatever, is really, really common. So with that in mind, that bullying is not, and this isn't always the case. There are progressive teachers and principals and employers who know that bullying is not good and make an effort to stop it. That does exist. However, it's outweighed or outnumbered by the places where bullying is still happening, and you know, there's still people suiciding every year as a result of being bullied. So, having said that, what we've been hearing about in the English-speaking media, interestingly, haven't yet seen any of this in the Japanese media. It may have been, but we haven't seen or heard anything in the Japanese media about this. But COVID patients, people who catch COVID and then are being harassed and bullied by other people. So what we've seen in the English-speaking media, the expat media, has been stories about a football team, soccer team, where at a school where some of the members caught COVID, and then everybody got harassed, and they were getting emails and they were getting phone calls. The school's getting phone calls telling them that they were to blame for spreading COVID and they should shut their school. And so the school's getting harassed, the individual people were getting harassed by emails and things like that. There was extended stories about other people who'd tested negative, so they didn't have COVID. They were in these groups where some people did have COVID, but they were PCR tested and found to not have COVID, but were asked to quit their part-time jobs and were sent from clubs. There was a couple of examples sent from clubs, all sorts of stuff. So sort of ignorant, very ignorant behaviour from the people who are doing this behaviour. And then closer to home, the story that we got from one of our friends here was that their friend, who lives just south of us here, not very far away in the next town, the daughter, 16-year-old daughter, had COVID, and they had people throwing rocks at their houses and putting up posters on their house saying all sorts of abusive stuff, you know, go somewhere else and don't live here. And they were basically harassed to the point where they moved house. And you know, just really irrational, ignorant behavior. You know, anybody can catch this. You know, anybody can catch this. There's an element of luck in this, isn't there? I mean, we can take our precautions. We can take our precautions, and we can wear masks, and we can wash our hands, and we can avoid crowds, and we can try and stay at home as much as possible. But there still is an element of luck to this, isn't there? You know, that you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and get exposed to the wrong person and catch it. You know, and to stigmatize people and harass people based on this. And there was one of the articles that we saw, they talked about how the same thing happened in Japan with AIDS and with something else. What was it? It is quite a common reaction because, of course, keep in mind, this is a country where bullying is a sort of a accepted thing to do, where, you know, people either engage in it or turn a blind eye to it. The majority, not everybody, but the majority either engage in bullying or turn a blind eye to other people doing the bullying, don't step up to say anything about it. And germophobia, right, where, you know, there's always been germophobia here, long before COVID came along, you know. There's always been germophobia here, people paranoid about germs and washing their hands continuously and wearing masks continuously and all the rest of it. So if you combine a culture of bullying with a culture of germophobia and then throw in COVID, irrational, ignorant responses abound. So just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing and ridiculously illogical. Obviously what's added to it around here has been the fact that, you know, as we mentioned before, this area has been pretty lucky. We haven't had many cases around here at all. So that's obviously not going to help the situation either. But, you know, these other cases that we're hearing about were you know, good-sized cities where they're getting the same sort of reaction, and the cyberbullying and the other sorts of irrational behaviour, posters being put up. Oh, that was the other one. Apparently it's pretty widespread. Anybody who gets it, or lots of the people who are getting it, are then having their images and their names posted on the internet. This person's unclean, this person has COVID, this person's spreading COVID, stay away from this person, right? Including lots of cases where they've got it wrong, where the people that they've put on the internet, the images of the people, the names of the people they've put on the internet saying that they had COVID, didn't have COVID, they were wrong. And just ruining people's lives with this, you know, people losing their jobs and being thrown out of clubs and all sorts of things when there was nothing wrong with them. Someone's got it wrong. That's a bad thing about the internet, isn't it? Is that it's good for spreading correct information, but once incorrect information gets put out there, you know, it never gets brought back in, does it? We've seen that so many times over the years, haven't we? Where people get slandered and their lives get ruined, and the information turns out to be incorrect, and the exposure that the correction gets is never what the original, is it? You know, the false information might have been front page of a newspaper or a big story on the internet, and when it turns out to be wrong and there's a correction, the correction is some small little article that no one sees, and the damage has already been done. And apparently that's what's been going on with these images of the people, the names of the people as well. So it's disappointing, isn't it? It really is. Human behaviour in times of crisis, or any time really, can be very disappointing, can't it? And in this case, you know, already you imagine the people who really do have COVID, already that's a terrible situation to be in, isn't it? They also say that the other problem with this is that because they're stigmatising it so badly, that it could interfere with tracking, because what it's going to mean is people aren't going to want to identify the people that they've been around. Because if they test positive for COVID and then the doctors say, right, we need to know who you've been with for the last couple of weeks, they're going to hesitate to give them a list of names, aren't they? Knowing that there's a really good chance that anybody they name could then be harassed and intimidated and have their life ruined. You know, it wouldn't be doing a favour for them, would it? So you can imagine they'd be hesitant to say their name. So that's another bit of damage, severe damage that could be done by this ignorant, stupid behaviour. You know, bullying people because they're sick. Just ridiculous, isn't it? You know. So, you know, as if those people aren't suffering enough. I mean, you know, having tested positive, and all the physical suffering that goes on with actually having it, you've got all the mental anguish as well with worrying about your friends and family and your life. You know, the last thing you need on top of that is to be harassed by a bunch of idiots. You know, harassed and bullied by a bunch of ignorant idiots. You know, so anyway, apologised at the start, apologise again. These two last topics, we just got to tell you, you know, we can't not, can we? You know, yesterday's topic was about the residents not being allowed back into Japan. Well, we've got to talk about that. That's a really important topic that not nearly enough talk is happening about that. Not nearly enough public exposure is going on to that story. And then this one too, equally important, isn't it? You know, and again, this is the sort of stuff that you don't see people standing up and talking about. You know, the fact that bullying is tolerated so much in Japan. You know, in some countries, if this was going on, you know, high-profile people would be standing up and saying, don't bully people because they're sick. That's ignorant. Don't do it. Whereas in Japan, we haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen anybody talking about it publicly, except the expat media so far. I mean, it could have been reported in the Japanese media, but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it at all. So, you know, it's only through the expat media and also through the second-hand story through our friends, you know, which is just terrible, isn't it? Throwing rocks at their house and posting posters on the front of their house with abuse to the point they moved house. How ignorant is that behaviour? So, anyway, that's enough of that. I promise you guys, the next video we post is going to be a light-hearted, positive one. They won't be as depressing as these last two. But anyway, we'll keep telling you and showing you what we see and what we hear. That's what we do, isn't it? More videos coming soon.